President Biden for months said he was not going to pardon his son, Hunter. He did so on Sunday and did so with a sweeping pardon whose language tracked in modern times only with President Ford's pardon of Richard Nixon.
I absolutely agree with the president's decision here. I do not agree with the way it was done. I don't agree with the timing, and I don't agree, frankly, with the attack on our judicial system.
Top Biden advisor Anita Dunn slammed Joe Biden for how he went about pardoning his own son Hunter while speaking at the New York Times annual DealBook Summit, which I thought was fascinating. Now, we have more of Dunn's take, but before we get to it, the context here is important. So this is what Joe Biden had said as he was announcing the pardon of his own son. He said, "From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision making, and I kept my word even as I have watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted. There has been an effort to break Hunter, who has been 5.5 years sober, even in the face of unrelenting attacks and selective prosecution. In trying to break Hunter, they've tried to break me, and there's no reason to believe it will stop here. I believe in the justice system, but as I have wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected this process and it led to a miscarriage of justice." So that's exactly what Anita Dunn is referencing. Essentially, Biden's skepticism and cynicism in regard to our institutions, particularly as it pertains to our justice system. And so with that in mind, let's hear her comments with full context.
I don't speak for President Biden any longer and was not party to the conversations that were held about this. But let me just start by saying that I do not believe, and I don't think most people believe, that Hunter Biden should go to jail. And that, he had a serious addiction, that he broke the law, that he has pled guilty to that he has been held accountable and has actually been publicly pilloried in a way that very few people who commit these crimes have ever been pilloried. And had this pardon been done at the end of the term in the context of compassion, the way many pardons will be done, I am sure, and many commutations will be done, I think would have been a different story. So I will say, I absolutely agree with the president's decision here. I do not agree with the way it was done. I don't agree with the timing, and I don't agree, frankly, with the attack on our judicial system. As we were in the midst of the president-elect rolling out his nominees, and in particular, in the middle of a Kash Patel weekend, kind of throwing this into the middle of it was exceptionally poor timing, and that the argument is one that I think many observers are concerned about a president who ran to restore the rule of law, who has upheld the rule of law, who has really defended the rule of law, kind of saying, well, maybe not right now.
So I want to focus specifically on her critique of Biden referencing his distrust toward our institutions and the judicial system and how that really offends her. She has a problem with that. Well, you're the top Biden advisor. Biden ran a campaign specifically on how if Donald Trump wins, it will be our last election. If Donald Trump wins, our institutions will not hold. So how is it okay in doubting our institutions leading up to the election, and now all of a sudden, oh, I really take great issue with Biden referencing how our judicial system can't be trusted, that it's now been deteriorated and politicized and all of that. I just thought that was an interesting contradiction.
Yeah, all right, so first let me do Anita Dunn. She's one of the pivotal characters in the Democratic establishment. She's been an advisor / consultant to many of these top establishment Democrats. So I know exactly what she's doing here. So number one, she's saying, oh, I totally agree with the decision of Hunter to pardon Hunter. So let's not lose track of that. So that's your normal, if I'm being honest, ass kissing of the Democratic leadership. Don't get me wrong, if you hire me, of course your family is beloved and I will protect them and we'll break the laws and do anything we need to protect them. But the timing was off. Oh, why was the timing and the strategy and the tactics off? Because Anita Dunn's not there anymore. She left in July. So that's a part of how you throw the new advisors under the bus while pretending to be principled. Okay, and then she says that she's worried about how it affects the judicial system, justice system, et cetera. But if you're worried about that, why would you be in favor of the pardon? And what does the timing have anything to do with whether it's against the justice system or not against the justice system? So she wants to have her cake and eat it too. She wants credit for being principled and and protecting the justice system, etc. But don't forget, keep hiring me, okay? Because I will let you do anything you want with your family members, etc., etc. So a lot of disingenuous stuff there, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
And she's a very smart person.
Is she?
No, she is. She's very capable, right? But her, intelligence goes in this direction, and for those purposes. Now, look, the whole thing was funny to me in a little bit, because for a couple of reasons. Number one, both sides keep saying, "Oh, well, Trump did this wrong and Biden did this wrong." And I just wanted to be the one person in the room to go, "You're both right. They both did those things wrong," but nobody ever says that.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Right?
That is a great point. And what's fascinating to me is, look, this is now another panel discussion in which those closest to the Democratic Party, to the power players, some of them are power players themselves in the Democratic Party, they appear to have learned nothing. There was a Never Trump Republican, the publisher for The Bulwark, involved in this panel discussion, and she definitely despises Trump and got into all sorts of squabbles throughout the panel, hour and a half long panel discussion. And it's just interesting because she kept repeating that she believed Kamala Harris ran a great campaign, she was really killing it, and then immediately pivoted to all of the things that she hates about Donald Trump. But look, you can dislike Donald Trump, that's totally fine. But there needs to be a real reckoning in regard to what the Democratic Party stands for and what they are messaging to the American people during these elections, because less and less people are buying what they're selling. But in regard to Hunter Biden's pardon, I want to just give some really interesting poll results on how the American people felt about that, because according to the Associated Press and the NORC Center for Public Affairs research, they found that only about 2 in 10 Americans approve of President Joe Biden's decision to pardon his son Hunter after earlier promising he would not do so. Now the poll found that about 4 in 10 Democrats approve of the pardon, while about 3 in 10 disapprove, and about 1/4 did not have an opinion or did not know enough to say. The vast majority of Republicans, obviously, and about half of independents had a negative opinion. But look, even among Democrats, 4 in 10 say, yeah, we know like that. And I don't blame them, because when you have someone, the president of the United States, repeat over and over again, no, I'm not gonna pardon my son, and then he obviously reneges on that promise, it says something about his character. And so all of this stuff about I don't trust the judicial system and all of that, I don't know if I'm personally buying it. I do think that the prosecution into Hunter Biden on the gun charge and the taxes was overblown. And I don't think that an ordinary person would be treated similarly to how Hunter Biden was treated. But my big issue with the pardon was the length of time in which Hunter Biden is now cleared with that blanket pardon, right? It appears that there were other things going on that he hadn't been charged with yet.
And of course, this absurdity that about Biden saying that, oh, I won't pardon him, when we all knew he was going to pardon him. And the Democrats on that panel are still pretending like, oh no, he had a last second change of mind. No, he didn't. That's absurd. He was assuming they were going to win and they were going to pardon him. And if they didn't win, he was going to pardon him anyway. So, but in a panel like that, and this gets to the second hilarious part in my opinion, they're never going to tell you that the politicians are giant liars because they almost all work for the politicians. They're almost never going to tell you that they're crooks and they take donor money and do what they do, because they're all work for politicians, including, in my opinion, the media figures there, right? So they have these hilarious conversations about which new direction should the Democratic Party take, when none of them are in favor of a new direction. So they didn't invite a single populist, certainly on the left-wing side, right? Van Jones comes a little bit close and he talks about how we kicked out all the rebels, and I appreciate that, Van, nice job, right? And we'll get to that in a second. But other than that, there's no mention, there's no discussion, there's no inclusion of an actual populist.
It's not on their radar, Cenk. It's not even on their radar. It's not. It's just not.
So that's why that leads to the third hilarious thing. I mean, there's side hilarious things like Kamala Harris ran a great campaign, which almost all the Democrats on the panel said. She lost to Donald Trump. Like, you guys are on a different planet. Anyway, the third major one is, we're learning. We're learning. This is a moment to learn. Moment to learn what? You're gonna learn new scripts. So let's give you more.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit about a conversation that Bill Clinton had on The View in regard to pardons, because it turns out that Clinton is interested in some preemptive pardons doled out by Joe Biden before the inauguration of Donald Trump. Let's take a look.
Do you think it would be wise of President Biden to preemptively pardon any potential targets? What about your wife, Hillary Clinton? She apparently is on Kash Patel's list.
I guess if Kash Patel is determined to make one up, he could do it. But I think if President Biden wanted to talk to me about that, I would talk to him about it. But I don't think I should be giving public advice on the pardon power. I think it's a very personal thing.
But if he pardons them, that sort of implies that they did something wrong, which they didn't.
Well, I have a question actually about
Not necessarily.
So it is fascinating that Bill Clinton is interested in, potentially having a conversation with Joe Biden about preemptively pardoning his wife, Hillary Clinton. Other names were brought up as well. Senator-elect Adam Schiff, former Representative Liz Cheney, definitely don't pardon her. Former head of NIAID, Anthony Fauci, we all know who he is. I don't know specifically what these individuals might have done wrong that they could get criminally charged for. But what I also thought was interesting, Cenk, is that Adam Schiff, not buying it, he does not think that a pardon is necessary. So he rejected the notion of being preemptively pardoned prior to Trump finally taking office.
That's a rare win for Adam Schiff.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so there is no such thing as a preemptive pardon. I don't know what the hell this conversation is about. So I remember when Trump talked about potential I don't even remember if it was Trump that brought it up or an ally of his that brought up preemptive pardons when he was in office. And every one of those people on the panel at that time, and Clinton and everybody else, was outraged.
Right.
Outraged.
Yeah.
This is a violation of our justice system and the way things are done, and it's an attack on our institutions. The minute it's the Democrats, they're like, oh, okay, let's have a discussion. Yeah, I say, yeah, of course, obviously, and so, some people say maybe not. What happened to an attack on our justice system? Again, we're the only ones that are actually bothered when Trump did attack the justice system, but also now when the Democrats attack the justice system. There is no such thing as a preemptive pardon. That's nuts. Because what if you give a preemptive pardon, I guess for things that happened in the past, but you don't know what happened in the past? What if they killed someone and you didn't know? Are we gonna now give future pardons so you can commit crimes and get away with it later? No, this is nuts. It's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. There are no preemptive pardons. I'm 1,000,000,000% against it.
By the way, there is no indication and no reporting indicating that Joe Biden himself is part of any of these conversations having to do with preemptive pardons, which I think is strange. Like everyone around him is having these conversations except for Joe Biden. However, final thing that I do want to mention.
That's because Joe Biden doesn't care about anyone but himself and Hunter and Jill Biden.
And he might be napping. I'm just keeping it real.
And he might have massive dementia.
Yeah, okay, but there is something that Biden, I think, did, and that was break a record when it comes to commuting sentences of individuals who had been convicted of crimes, and he also pardoned a lot of people. So today, Joe Biden commuted almost 1,500 sentences and pardoned 39 people. So if you're not familiar with the difference between commuting and pardoning, a pardon completely wipes out a conviction, while a commutation leaves the guilty verdict in place, but reduces the punishment. And so those pardoned Thursday, meaning today, had been convicted of nonviolent crimes such as drug offenses and turned their lives around, White House lawyers said. As for the commutations, those were for individuals who are actually serving sentences at home for at least 1 year. Some prisoners were sent home because of how rapidly COVID-19 was spreading inside the prison system, and Republicans have tried to pass legislation that would make those individuals essentially return to prison. But Biden stated that individuals whose sentences were commuted had successfully reintegrated into their families and communities and have shown that they deserve a second chance. So I'm glad that he did this, because it would have been a bad look if he pardoned his own son and then did nothing about some of the individuals who were serving time for like minor drug offenses and things like that. So this is a good move. I wanted to be fair and give him credit for that.
Yeah, on that note, so look, I didn't go through all 1,500 sentences that he commuted, and there might be some white collar criminals in there that got to go home during COVID, because during COVID, first the rich were let out, et cetera. So, but having said that, overall, I think this is exactly what the pardons and commutations are supposed to be about. It appears that they are largely people who are nonviolent offenders, really simple drug charges, so nonsense like that. And and they turned their life around. And I read some of their stories. Some became deacons, and others are, helped in emergency services, et cetera, et cetera. Wonderful stories. So that's how you're supposed to do pardons. And so that batch is terrific. Guys, like we all collectively have stopped worrying about Democrat, Republican, Biden, Trump, all that. Judge it on the merits. So those pardons were great. The Hunter Biden pardon was ridiculous. And now a thought occurred to me for the first time as we were just talking about how much dementia he has. Remember when he was trying to make a decision on whether to stay in the race or not, they made it very clear in the reporting that everybody else was out of the room, and the only 3 people that were relevant in that decision were Joe Biden, Jill Biden, and Hunter Biden.
Terrible.
And it appeared, we said at the time, that Jill and Hunter made the decision for him to stay in the race back when he was staying there, because they thought he might have problems, but we're still, want to be in power, right?
Terrible.
So then it just occurred to me, did Hunter Biden pardon himself? Like, because his dad's got dementia, so if he's in the room and that's the only people he's listening to, all he's got to do is get Jill to agree, and next thing you know,
Joe Biden wanted to pardon his son.
I mean, he would have pardoned him anyway, probably, and he doesn't care about the rule of law. He doesn't care about any of that. And they just kept saying how much, we're going to talk more about it later in the show, how much all the Democrats love Joe Biden. I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think that's the case at all. Here's a guy who's constantly looking out for himself, an egomaniac, and no, love is not the feeling we have for Joe Biden at this time. If you enjoyed this video, that's because of our members. They make us independent, they make us strong, and they make us honest. Become a member today by hitting the join button below.